My brothers and sisters, let me tell you something that happened recently that shows you exactly what I've been saying about our so-called leaders in Africa. You know, sometimes the truth reveals itself in the most unexpected ways. And what I'm about to share with you is one of those moments that makes you sit back and really think about where we are as a continent. Listen carefully to this story, because it's not just about one man or one country. It's about the mindset that has kept us in chains for decades. It's about leaders who talk big on social media, who beat their chests and act tough. But the moment the real power shows up, the moment America or the West raises an eyebrow, they crumble like dry leaves. And my people, this is exactly what we witnessed just recently with General Muhoozi in Uganda. Now, before I get into the details, let me ask you this. How many times have we seen African leaders talk about sovereignty? How many times have they stood in front of microphones and cameras, pounding the table, telling us about African dignity and independence? But when it comes time to actually stand on those principles, what happens? They apologize, they delete their posts, they bow down. And my brothers and sisters, this is precisely what Muhoozi did, and I want you to understand every single detail of what happened, because it tells us everything we need to know. So here's what went down in Uganda. General Muhoozi Kainerugaba, who is not just any military officer, but the son of President Yoweri Museveni, decided to make some very bold statements. Now you need to understand who this man is first. This is the army chief of Uganda. This is the man who many people believe will be the next president after his father. This is someone who has significant power, who commands the military, who has the ear of the president because he is literally the president's son. And this man loves social media. He loves going on X, which used to be called Twitter, and making all kinds of statements, threatening people, attacking his perceived enemies, and basically waging wars from behind a keyboard. On this particular day, Muhoozi decided to go after Bobi Wine, the opposition leader who has been giving the Museveni government serious headaches. Now Bobi Wine is a young man, a musician turned politician, who has captured the hearts of many young Ugandans. He represents change. He represents a new generation that is tired of the old ways, tired of the same people holding power for 30-40 years. And naturally people like Muhoozi see Bobi Wine as a threat to their dynasty, to their plan of keeping power within the family. So what did Muhoozi do? He went on social media and made a very serious accusation. He claimed that Bobi Wine had kidnapped himself and gone missing. And listen to this part carefully, my brothers and sisters, because this is where it gets interesting. Muhoozi said that according to their intelligence, Bobi Wine did all of this in coordination with the current administration at the United States Embassy in Uganda. Can you imagine? He accused the American embassy of helping Bobi Wine to disappear. And then, as if that wasn't enough, he announced that because of this situation, the Uganda People's Defense Forces, the UPDF, was suspending all cooperation with the current administration at the US Embassy in Kampala. Now let me pause here for a moment. When I read this, I thought to myself, finally an African leader is standing up and saying enough is enough. Finally someone is telling these foreign powers that we won't accept their interference in our affairs. Because let's be honest, my brothers and sisters, the Americans and other Western powers have been meddling in African affairs for decades. They support whoever serves their interests. They destabilize governments that don't bow to them. They fund opposition groups when it suits them. So when I first heard about Muhoozi's statement, part of me wanted to believe that maybe, just maybe, this was a moment of genuine African assertion. But then, my brothers and sisters, then came the reality check. And this is where the story becomes both sad and instructive for all of us who care about Africa's future. Muhoozi didn't stop with just that one post. No, he went further. He issued what he called a warning to any foreign power that might be thinking of helping Bobi Wine. He said, and I'm paraphrasing here, that any foreign country that attempts to smuggle Bobi Wine out of Uganda would be creating a serious rupture in relations with Uganda. He was drawing a line in the sand, or so it seemed. He was telling the world that Uganda would not tolerate foreign interference, that they would not allow external powers to protect their political opponents. My brothers and sisters, these are strong words. These are the kinds of words that make headlines. These are the statements that get shared across social media, that get people talking and debating. And for about 1 hour, maybe Muhoozi felt like a strong man, like someone who had stood up to the mighty United States of America and told them where to get off. But you know what happened next? Something that I believe every African needs to see and understand. But within 1 hour, just 60 minutes after posting those bold statements, Muhoozi deleted everything. Every single post disappeared. And then came what I can only describe as a humiliating apology. Muhoozi posted a new message, and I want you to listen to what he said, because this is the heart of the matter. He said he wanted to apologize to their great friends, the United States, for his earlier tweets which he had now deleted. He claimed that he was being fed wrong information. He said he had spoken with the US ambassador to Uganda, and everything was okay now. And then the part that really tells you everything. He said they were going to continue their military cooperation as usual. My brothers and sisters, do you see what happened here? Do you understand what this represents? In the span of 1 hour, we went from bold declarations of sovereignty to a complete surrender. We went from accusations of foreign interference to calling America our great friends. We went from suspending cooperation to promising that everything would continue as usual. Now Muhoozi wants us to believe that he was fed wrong information. He wants us to think that this was just an honest mistake, that bad intelligence led him to make those accusations. But my brothers and sisters, let me ask you something. If you are the army chief of a country, if you are the son of the president, if you have access to the best intelligence services your nation can provide, don't you think you would verify your information before making such serious international accusations? Don't you think you would be absolutely certain before accusing a foreign embassy of harboring your political opponent, and then suspending military cooperation with one of the world's most powerful nations? The truth, my brothers and sisters, is much simpler and much more painful. Muhoozi got a phone call. Somebody from the American embassy, or perhaps from Washington itself, made it very clear to him that there would be consequences for his statements. Maybe they threatened to cut military aid. Maybe they threatened to impose sanctions. Maybe they reminded him of all the ways that America supports the Museveni regime. Whatever was said in that conversation, it was enough to make Muhoozi completely reverse his position within an hour. And this, my brothers and sisters, is what I want you to understand. This is the reality of many of our African leaders. They talk tough when it's convenient. They wave flags and speak about sovereignty when they're addressing their own people. But when the real powers that control them make a phone call, they fold immediately. They apologize. They delete their posts. They go back to being obedient servants of the very systems they pretend to oppose. Now let me give you some context about this Muhoozi character, because his behavior is not new. This pattern of posting inflammatory things on social media and then retracting them has happened before. In the past, his own father, President Museveni, has had to apologize to Kenya because Muhoozi tweeted something suggesting that Uganda could capture Nairobi. Can you imagine threatening to invade a neighboring country on Twitter? And then his uncle General Salim Saleh had to apologize to the European Union because of other controversial tweets from Muhoozi. So this is who we're dealing with. This is a man who apparently has so little self-control, so little understanding of diplomacy and international relations, that he regularly causes diplomatic incidents through his social media posts. And yet, this is the man who many believe will be the next president of Uganda. This is the man who is being groomed to take over from his father and continue the dynasty. My brothers and sisters, while all this drama was unfolding on social media, there's a real human being at the center of this story, and that's Bobi Wine. This young man has been in hiding because he fears for his life. He has accused President Museveni of rigging the elections, which were marked by an internet shutdown, while the opposition was either pushed aside or silenced completely. During the election campaign, Bobi Wine even said he would welcome intervention from America, similar to how the United States went after Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. Now, I don't necessarily agree with Bobi Wine calling for American intervention. We cannot solve African problems by inviting foreign powers to interfere. But I understand his desperation. When you have a government that shuts down the internet, that attacks opposition leaders, that rigs elections, that uses the military to intimidate citizens, what options do you have? Bobi Wine himself said that any assistance that comes their way is helpful, but that assistance should not be to take over their country. He said the responsibility to liberate Uganda, to govern it, and to move it forward lies entirely with the people of Uganda. And you know what? Despite being in hiding, despite fearing for his life, Bobi Wine has been actively posting on social media, responding to Muhoozi's threats. When Muhoozi said he would catch him dead or alive, Bobi Wine's response was simple: catch me if you can. It's like a cat and mouse game playing out on social media while real lives and real freedom hang in the balance. There was even an incident where military forces raided Bobi Wine's home and allegedly assaulted his wife Barbie. Muhoozi has denied this, of course, but the accusations are out there. This is the level of intimidation we're talking about. This is what happens when you dare to challenge the established order, in many of our African countries. Now, my brothers and sisters, let me bring in some expert perspective on this situation, because it helps us understand the broader implications. There was a political risk analyst who was asked about Muhoozi's posts and his quick retraction. This analyst pointed out something very important. The pattern we see with Muhoozi is not new. It's happened multiple times before. He makes inflammatory statements, causes diplomatic problems, and then either he or someone in his family has to apologize and walk things back. The analyst suggested that Muhoozi probably retracted his tweets to let the situation calm down and to resume cordial relations with the United States. And why would he want to do that? Because Uganda has strong cooperation with America, especially in counter-terrorism operations. In other words, Uganda depends on American support. The Museveni government depends on American military aid, training, and cooperation. So when push comes to shove, they cannot afford to truly antagonize the Americans. When asked about which countries might offer Bobi Wine asylum, the analyst mentioned that Wine has previously sought asylum in the United States. So that's definitely one option. But beyond that, many countries around the world are watching what's happening. They're seeing the statements coming from General Muhoozi, the head of the military, and they're concluding that Bobi Wine's life might be in danger. Any country that values democracy, whether in Africa or abroad, might be inclined to offer him political asylum. This analyst also spoke about the wider African perspective on what's happening in Uganda. And this is interesting, my brothers and sisters. The analyst said that President Museveni has been in power for a long time and is well respected across the continent among the older generation of leaders. But among young people, there's significant support for Bobi Wine because he represents their aspirations, their desire for change, their frustration with decades of the same leadership. So opinion is divided. The old guard respects Museveni. The young generation sees hope in Bobi Wine. And this division is not unique to Uganda. It's playing out across our continent. Everywhere you look, you see young people demanding change, demanding accountability, demanding a new kind of leadership. And everywhere you look, you see the old order desperately trying to hold on to power, using whatever means necessary. When asked about how Ugandans perceive Muhoozi as the president in waiting, the analyst said something that should concern all of us. Ugandans have apparently grown used to Muhoozi's controversial social media statements. People from around the world have become accustomed to seeing this kind of behavior from him. They've learned to take his statements with a grain of salt because he often retracts them later. But my brothers and sisters, is this really the kind of leadership we want to normalize in Africa? Should we accept leaders who make reckless statements and then apologize later? Should we be comfortable with military commanders who wage Twitter wars and then delete their posts when the consequences become real? Is this the standard we're setting for the next generation of African leadership? The analyst mentioned that Muhoozi had taken a break from social media during the election period to allow things to proceed smoothly, and that he might be advised to do the same again to let the current situation de-escalate and to present a more professional, presidential image going forward. But here's my question. If someone needs to be constantly advised to stop making inflammatory statements, if they need to be told to present a professional image rather than naturally being professional, what does that tell you about their fitness for leadership? My brothers and sisters, this entire episode with Muhoozi asking for forgiveness from America is a perfect illustration of what I've been trying to tell you about the state of leadership on our continent. We have too many leaders who talk about sovereignty but don't actually believe in it. We have too many who beat their chests for the cameras but bow their heads in private. We have too many who claim to stand for Africa but who are actually standing for their own interests and the interests of those who truly control them. The fact that Muhoozi could go from accusing the American embassy of serious interference to apologizing to his great friends in America within 1 hour tells you everything you need to know about where the real power lies. It tells you who is really in charge. It tells you who can make a phone call and change the entire direction of policy in an African country. And this is not just about Uganda or Muhoozi. This pattern repeats itself across our continent. Leaders who talk tough but act weak. Leaders who promise change but deliver more of the same. Leaders who speak about Pan-Africanism but who are more loyal to Paris, London, or Washington than they are to their own people. My brothers and sisters, we need to wake up. We need to stop accepting this kind of leadership. We need to stop making excuses for leaders who cannot stand firm on principles. We need to demand better. We deserve better. Our children deserve better. Africa deserves better. The story of Muhoozi and his deleted tweets might seem like just another social media drama, but it's actually a window into the soul of contemporary African politics. It shows us the gap between rhetoric and reality. It shows us the difference between appearing strong and actually being strong. It shows us that until we have leaders who truly believe in African sovereignty, who are willing to face consequences for standing on principle, who won't fold at the first sign of pressure from foreign powers, we will continue to be a continent that is talked about, rather than a continent that talks for itself. This is the conversation we need to have. This is the reality we need to confront. And until we do, we will keep seeing the same patterns repeat themselves over and over again.
Subscribe to Voice of Sovereign Africa today. Let's build a greater Africa together.